Creating an object using new is not very efficient because new will place objects on the heap. The approach would be very costly for small and simple variables. Instead of create variables using new, Java can use primitive types to create automatic variables that are not references. The variables hold the value and it is placed on the stack, so it is much more efficient. Java determines the size of each primitive type. These sizes do not change from one machine architecture to another. This is one of the key features of the language that makes Java so portable. The Java programming language is statically typed, which means that all variables must first be declared before they can be used. This involves stating the variable's type and name as you have already seen. The Java programming language supports 7 other primitive data types. A primitive type is predefined by the language and is named by a reserved keyword. Primitive values do not share state with other primitive values. The 8 primitive data types supported by the Java programming language are: first, byte. The byte data type is an 8-bit signed 2's complement integer. It has a minimum value of -128 and a maximum value of 127 inclusive. The byte data type can be useful for saving memory in large arrays, where the memory savings actually matters. They can also be used in place of int, where their limits help to clarify your code. The fact that the variable's range is limited can serve as a form of documentation. Second one is short. The short data type is 16-bit signed 2's complement integer. It has a minimum value of 32,768 and maximum value of 32,767 inclusive. As with byte, the same guidelines apply. You can use a short to have memory in large arrays in situations where the memory savings actually matters. Int. The int data type is a 32-bit signed 2's complement integer. It has a minimum value of -147, 483, 648 and maximum value of 147, 483, 647. For integer values, the data type is generally the default choice unless there is a reason to choose something else. This data type will most likely be large enough for the numbers your program will use. But if you need a wider range of values, use long instead. Long. The long data type is 64-bit signed 2's complement integer. It has a minimum value of -9, 223, 372, 036, 854, 775, 808 and maximum value of 922, 372, 036, 854, 775807. Use this data type when you need a range of values wider than those provided by int. Float. The float data type is a single precision 32-bit IEEE 754 floating point. Its range of value is beyond the scope of this discussion, but is specified in section. As with the recommendation for byte and short, use a float instead of double if you need to save memory in large arrays of floating point numbers. This data type should never be used for precise values, such as currency. For that, you will need to use the java.math.bigdecimal class instead. Numbers and string cover big, decimal and other useful classes provided by the Java platform. Double. The double data type is a double precision of 64-bit IEEE 754 floating point. For decimal values, this data type is generally the default choice. As mentioned above, this data type should never be used for precise values and such as currency. Boolean. The Boolean data type has only two possible values, true and false. Use this data type for simple flags that track true-false conditions. This data type represents 1-bit information, but its size is not something that precisely defined. Char. The char data type is a single 16-bit Unicode character. It has minimum value of 0 and a maximum value of 65,535 inclusive. PHP, Hypertext Preprocessor. PHP is open source web scripting language and it is a loosely typed. You can change a variable's data type at any time. Variables can store data of different types and different types of data can do different things. For example, you can add variables whose values are numbers 1 and 2, but adding variables whose values are characters B and C does not make much sense. You can store the following simple types of data in PHP variables. Integer. A whole number such as -43, 0127 or 5438, the range of integers that is allowed varies depending on your operating system. But in general, you can usually use any number from -2 billion up to +2 billion. Floating point number. A number that includes decimal places such as 5.24 or 123.456789. This is often called a real number or a float. Character string. A series of string characters such as hello. There is no practical limit on the length of a string. Boolean. A true or false value. Boolean data types represent two possible states, true or false. Boolean values are used mainly to compare conditions for use in conditional statements. For example, PHP evaluates an expression. Thank you.